Okay, today on the show, we have Helen Hudson from SafeShowings.com. Let me tell you a little bit about Helen. When Helen chose to become a real estate professional, she knew it was the right move. She brought with her an extensive sales and management background, as well as tools that translated well into her real estate world. Now, throughout Helen's sales career, she has attributed her success to earning business by providing the best value for each and every client. Her clients say that she goes above and beyond expectations. Now, she has created the Safe Showings app after escaping a terrifying incident while working alone as a realtor. And the conversation around safety is something that we on this podcast have not explored extensively. So we are thrilled to welcome Helen Hudson from SafeShowings.com here on the podcast today. Helen, welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here and share my passion for realtors across the country and for realtor safety.
Well, I'll tell you, Helen and I actually met very briefly at the NAR conference in San Diego this past fall. And I will tell, sort of just to peel back the curtain just a little bit for our audience. We really, at this point, we've done 300 and some episodes, and we're fortunate enough to really not have to look for guests anymore. We just get every day we get hit by publicists or different realtors who say, "Oh, you should interview this person," or lots of different opportunities there. So we rarely go out and look for anyone to be on the show. But when I was walking around the expo hall with my girlfriend, we came across Safe Showings, and I said, "Well, what's that about? That's interesting." And we talked to Helen, and I said, "Oh my gosh, you have to be on our show because we don't talk about this." And very few, I feel like it doesn't get talked about enough. So we are really excited to have a conversation around safety. And of course, Helen is a top producing agent as well. But this idea that as an agent, you saw a need in the marketplace for more oversight and just overall well-being of agents as they sometimes are working internet leads where they haven't met anyone yet. But before we get to what Safe Showings does, I'd love to just hear your story. How did you get into real estate and why?
Yes, that's a great question. I majored in interior design in college. I graduated in '86, and I dabbled a little bit in commercial design and residential design, and then I found myself doing something totally different, transportation and logistics. Fast forward to almost 5 years ago, it was a bucket list. I'm from South Carolina, but I've always loved Charleston, like millions of others. But I wanted to live in Charleston, South Carolina, and I chose to leave.
Who doesn't, by the way?
Right.
Everybody wants. It's like Charleston, Nashville, Austin, Portland, or maybe not Portland as much anymore. But gosh, everybody who I apologize for interrupting you, but every time I hear the word Charleston, if I'm in a group of people, everyone just goes, "Oh my God, I love Charleston."
Yeah.
so of course you wanted to live there. It's amazing.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
I also thought, I've always been fascinated with real estate, and I left a career with companies like UPS. I was in sales. I never drove a truck, but I was in sales for UPS and companies like that, and wanted to try something new. I got my license, passed that test on the first try, which was a miracle because it is hard. People might laugh about it, but it's tough. I started out working for a local firm here and then joined a team 6 months later. So that's kind of my story. I've had my license. This coming summer will be for 5 years.
Wow. And what was your experience, when you first started out as a realtor? Were there, I know you've had some safety concerns and issues, but let's talk about that experience, because again, I'm a guy. I live in a very dangerous city. And in fact, the neighborhood I live in here in Chicago, unfortunately, it's a very nice neighborhood, actually. But because it's a very nice neighborhood, there's a lot of crime. We've actually had a tremendous, I'm laughing only because I just moved to this area and there's nothing to laugh about, but just sort of the irony of me moving into this like dream place. Unfortunately, we've had an increase in carjackings, a significant increase. It's actually made the news here in Chicago. So it's a huge bummer for all of us that just moved into this wonderful new development. But it's even a concern for myself now, where as a real estate professional, I'm not really out there working with customers. So I'm not out there really meeting people at odd hours. However, I work at a firm with 800 agents who are constantly thinking about safety. And now that I live in an area where there is some additional crime that wasn't there prior, especially carjackings. Even myself, who really just sits at a desk all day, but I really sort of think about like, okay, at night, if I'm walking to, the grocery store or a drugstore, I have to really just think about it a little bit before I move out. And so I'm so glad we're having a conversation around safety. But what brought you, talk about that experience as an agent. Did you find yourself in situations that felt unsafe, on a regular basis?
Yes, right in the beginning, we have pretty good training for realtors. I'm sure you probably have heard some other stories. We're taught to follow your intuition,
Yeah.
bring a buyer into the office or meet with a seller, do a listing appointment, bring a friend, whatever. We're given good safety tips. And if you feel unsafe, be sure you let others know where you're going to be. And my background right out of college, I managed apartments, and I was kind of used to a process in place where we were taught you can't show an empty apartment without surrendering a driver's license. That was our safety protocol. So when I got back into a career and started real estate, I have to admit it had been a while since I've met with strangers alone. So that feeling of meeting a new person I don't know, that's a buyer, I don't know their background, and being new in the business. So my group of people I'm working with are usually internet leads, going to a property that might be in an area I'm not comfortable with, and kind of new and needing business. You are vulnerable. You're meeting people in a place that's different, that you've never met before. You don't know who they're going to bring with them, and you don't want your mind to get paranoid. But there's a truth to that. As a new realtor, you are going to sometimes experience situations where your intuition tells you this doesn't feel right. And that's kind of early on. I had some of those experiences because I was working a lot of open houses alone. I probably did 50
Right.
open houses my first year. And then fast forward to when I joined the team, I was getting more volume of leads and my sales were going up. And it was a fast-paced environment, but I let my guard down. I cared more about the sale than the safety. And that's where my story begins.
Yeah, I think that's a very common experience, right? Especially working leads that aren't always, and not that sphere of influence leads mean it's a safe situation, but certainly seems to be less concern about safety. If it's your best friend says, "Oh, my friend wants to meet with you," of course, you still want to consider safety there. But when you're working internet leads in particular, yeah, I mean, anyone can fill out a form, right, on a website, and even if that person is vetted, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're safe. So I imagine and again, real estate's done oftentimes nights and weekends. So that's the other thing, is it's sometimes done at a time when not as many people are around. So if a crime wants to be committed, it probably makes sense to do it at a time when it's a little darker out. And so that's when realtors are out showing and working with clients. And so it is scary. And now everything's so virtual that oftentimes, when working those types of leads, the first time you might meet that person is at the showing. And that's, yeah, and your point is great about intuition. But unfortunately, intuition doesn't solve for everything, right? It's like, the best criminals in the world don't let people know they're criminals, right? So sometimes it's obvious, and other times, of course, it wouldn't be, which of course you saw as an opportunity to build, maybe a more structured sort of platform to help with safety. So tell us about sort of your experiences with safety. You mentioned where your story began, but I know you had a pretty harrowing experience that really caused you to rethink and start to develop your own tool to help with that.
Yes. 4 years ago, this coming March, I had received an internet lead to meet with a buyer. I set the appointment for Saturday at 2. And I drove up to the neighborhood early, as we're taught to do. It's the middle of the day. But when I drove into the neighborhood, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. It just didn't feel right. It was
Yeah,
really homes nearby that just didn't feel comfortable. But I parked my car, I wait for the buyer to arrive. He arrives, we go in the home. I left the door open. We're taught to do that from a safety standpoint. And this
sure.
was a very small house, no driveway. He goes to the back of the house. I kind of stand towards the front, and my guard was up because I was already nervous. And he got on his cell phone. A minute later, a truck drove up. Two men jump on the porch, and my heart stopped. I thought, oh my gosh, nobody knows where I am or who I'm with. That's immediately what I felt. But thankfully, I was given a second chance. They weren't there to harm me. I can tell the rest of the story. They saw the realtor magnet on my car. They saw the for sale sign. They saw that the door was open, and they thought it was an open house. But I tried to regain my composure. I gave them my card. I told them I was working with a buyer and that they could call me for an appointment. But I'll never forget that feeling of fear, knowing it could have gone differently.
I think all of our listeners can sort of, as you were explaining that story, probably relived the feelings they might have if that same situation happened, where, the person you don't know, who's your possible client, walks to the back of the home, sort of by themselves, jumps on their phone. A minute later, randomly on 2 o'clock on a random weekday, two other guys show up. Yeah, that I would have had that exact same reaction as, oh, this place is either being robbed, or these two people are here to hurt me, or God only knows. It is a terrifying experience. And thank goodness, it sort of, was not that, but it certainly could have been. And I live in Chicago, and we are a very violent city here, and it's always just easy to forget, because I think, for maybe some of our audience who might be listening, who think, oh, that doesn't really happen to me. But of course it can, and it can happen to anyone. And something to really think about. And most brokerages, at least here in Chicago, don't, and I'm only aware because I work with a lot of different brokerages. We talk about it. Very few of them have any sort of real safety technology. Of course, there is safety technology, but firms typically aren't, most of the firms I work with aren't giving that to their brokers. So this is something that is really, really important, especially now when, a lot of people are out of work, and crime is up, and, the pandemic has really changed things. People are, maybe more agitated and than they were. So let's tell me about how you started to develop SafeShowings, and
Yes.
what it's for.
Perfect. That situation caused me to think about my own personal safety differently. I was more focused on the sale than my safety, and I know I was given a second chance. NAR tells us that 38% of realtors have feared for their safety. And when I traveled for 2 years prior to the pandemic to different shows, events, Inman conferences, NAR conferences, and local ones. And I can't tell you how many people came up to me to share their story. So there is a valid problem. And after that situation happened, I did my own research, TJ. I went home and I looked, and I Googled, simple Google search. I wanted to know, am I alone? I found out that over 200 realtors have been murdered in the last decade. I even created a binder that has their stories in it and their pictures, and that's my why. I knew that I was given a second chance. They were not. And first thing I had to do is I wanted to find, is there a solution out there that meets the needs I'm looking for as a realtor? I wanted to make sure every buyer and seller knows that I have a protocol for safety. I also wanted to conquer the fear I felt that day when I said, nobody knows where I am or who I'm with. And that led me to do about 6 months of research on the NAR site under safety resources. I looked at the tools to see if I could find a tool that for safety that I could use.
and you weren't able to find one that satisfied your needs and requirements. And by the way, just back to that statistic about 38% of realtors have felt unsafe. I feel like that's probably a low number, and I bet if that was rerun today, especially focused on, I would love to hear specifically what percentage of men have gone through that experience of feeling unsafe versus women, and I would bet you that number is wildly different. I would just assume we know more crime is perpetrated on women, more violent crime in particular, and sexual crime and all sorts of terrible things. And so this is not obviously a product just for women's safety, obviously, but that 38% does actually seem low to me. I bet it's much higher than that.
I wouldn't doubt it. And one thing that I would share with you too is the most recent ones, the ones that I've researched. It's ironic, and I think it's not a coincidence, but 16 images of faces that I've read their stories about, half are men and half are women. So that's probably a
Yeah.
surprise to the listeners. And
Yeah.
it's not, so it's not just women. When you look at the ratio of the ones that I could find their stories and print those images out, it's half men and half women.
Well, and the biggest mistake I make when talking about where I live and in such a wonderful area of Chicago, the biggest mistake I make at night when walking to, there's a Target right downstairs and CVS and a Walgreens really close. The biggest mistake I make is I'm a guy, I'm fine. Um, and with my girlfriend who lives with me also is going, I'm like, hey, let's, I actually treat it totally differently. And that is a mistake because I think, oh, I'm fine. Because I haven't ever been attacked and neither has she. And I just assume, well, she's more vulnerable. No, she's really not. She might be physically not as adept, as strong as I am because of, just genetics and things. But that being said, doesn't mean somebody couldn't. In fact, it's probably easier to get me in certain ways because I'm not thinking about it. Thankfully, I think women are a bit more tuned to that, but that's still not enough coverage, right? Like there still needs to be tools in place to have a protocol so that it's not left up to chance or just intuition. So tell us about like what does Safe Showings do and how does it help increase somebody's personal safety?
I'd love to share that. What happens, we teach realtors to think about their safety from the moment they set the appointment, whether it's a buyer or a seller, a listing appointment, you're in the safety of your office. And we are working more with technology, not meeting people at an office. So you're on the phone, you're setting the appointment, you have their name and their phone number, and you've confirmed the date and the time you're going to show the property or meet them for a listing appointment. While you're on the phone, you tell them, hey, I care about safety. It's just the world we live in. I use a safety app called SafeShowings. And before I meet with anyone and go inside a property, I like to take a photo. It's captured in our app. By telling people before you meet with them, you're going to deter crime, because criminals' number one fear is getting caught, not the punishment for their crime. It's like a doorbell camera. They know there's a risk associated with cameras, so they avoid those. They look for easy targets. So once you have told the person that you use a safety product, after you hang up the phone, you've set the appointment, you can use our app and press a button that says create showing and the timer starts. The next thing our app will say, who are you meeting with? I start typing in your name through my contacts, and your information is uploaded. That's the key component that deters crime and helps us, if there's crime committed, catch the criminal, because we have it in the app. And then when you get to the property and you drive up early, when they arrive, that's when you say, hey, let's just go ahead and take that photo. And you can do a group shot with them, but get it before you go in the home. The timer's running. Our app is so easy to use. If you can press buttons, you can use it, but it starts at 45 minutes. You reset the timer, because if you're using the app the way we teach, you're not working with a criminal. you reset the timer. But if you forget, it'll remind you at 5 minutes to reset your timer. If you have 4 properties, you reset the timer, drive to the next property, street by street and road by road, it updates. You don't ever have to key in the address. So your second showing, when you put the car in park, it saves that address. It stores all the data inside the app. If for some reason you are attacked and the phone is destroyed, as long as you followed the process, your 3 emergency contacts will be sent the last location of the phone in that example, who you're with, because you put that in before you after you create the showing, and then an image of their face if you took a photo of their face.
And so you don't ask them for an image ahead of time because they could send you a fake image. So the
Right.
idea is you prep them ahead of time on the phone, say, hey, just so you know, when you arrive, this might seem a bit unusual if you're working with other realtors, but it's really important that we maximize each other's safety. So I'm going to take a picture of you. So just be aware of that. It's just for my own internal use, in case, well, you wouldn't even have to say why, but I think people would understand that. So you take a picture, you set the timer, and you also have inputted the locations of where you're going and when into the system. So it's
No,
scheduled.
no, actually, you don't. It's
It just
not tied
tracks it.
into. It knows exactly. You don't have to key in anything. It's pushing buttons. As soon as I drive up to that property address, it knows exactly where I am. It's in the top left corner of our app, and an image of your face will be there if we take that photo. And if you're not comfortable with the photo of the face, you can use the app any way you choose. We just know that's the best way to deter crime. If you want to get an image of the house you're at, or their license plate, or their driver's license, something's better than nothing. But the way to maximize and deter crime is to be in control. And we've had roundtables discussions with realtors about the image. And, when you think about it, every one of us is on social media. Your face is out there. If you're going by doorbell cameras, your image is out there. Public buildings, airports and ATMs and all those places, someone shouldn't be upset about getting a photo taken. If they are, it could be what saves your life. You want to work with buyers and sellers that are genuine and understand and respect you for caring about safety.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So the photo itself is almost, in a sense, a way to self-select out somebody who doesn't want to be caught. And of course, that doesn't ensure, of course, that the person wouldn't agree to that. But the idea is that most criminals go, well, I don't really want a picture uploaded to the cloud of somebody that I'm about to attack, or a crime I'm about to commit. So it's kind of like, to use kind of an older example, it'll show you my age. When I first moved to Chicago, I think you'll get a kick out of this. I used to have a club. If you remember, the club was a device that you would put in your steering wheel, and it would extend. It was kind of this long. If you don't know what it is, Google it. It probably will look pretty silly. And this was when cars didn't have as sophisticated of anti-theft devices, but it was a visual cue, because people would say to me, if somebody wants to cut through that, they can cut through it. They can get through that. And I would say, well, that's not why it's there. The reason it's there is because it's something that a criminal who might want to break into my car will just visually see and go, I don't want to deal with that. And they're going to move on to their next car. And so this is a very a more modern version of the club, in a sense, because it's something that a person who is a criminal, who's premeditating a crime, is going to say, well, I don't want somebody's going to take my picture. So that in and of itself, it seems like a subtle thing, but it's actually a really, really powerful idea. And I'm glad we're sort of spending some time on that, because it really is a very important piece. Does it ensure safety? Of course not. But somebody who's going to create a crime does not want anyone to know that they were at a particular location at a particular time, and they certainly don't want a photo of themselves, and all of that. So that makes perfect sense. So all you have to do, you go to you open the app, it starts tracking via GPS where you're going. It knows when you park. It knows the locations of where you're going and where you've been. And then let's say the phone does get destroyed. How does the system know to then contact, the contacts that the safety contacts that are listed. What happens in that scenario where if the timer ends, how does the realtor, well, before the phone getting destroyed, sorry, I'm kind of jumping around, but let's say, how does the app know that that the realtor is safe? Like I know in a Tesla car, for example, if you want to use the auto driving, every 10 seconds you have to tap the steering wheel. So Tesla's like, goes, well, we're pretty sure you're not asleep if you're tapping the thing every 10 seconds. Obviously your app wouldn't require that much work, but can you talk a little bit about how does the app know that the realtor is seemingly safe at that moment?
Yes, everything's driven. A couple things. When you register for our app, it's a one-step process. You're going to enter your information, your 3 emergency contacts. I highly recommend you pick people that love you and will respond. And we make you put 3 because everyone can get distracted. And remember, our timer starts at 45 minutes. Most people can get in and out of one property in 20. So you're probably not going to accidentally call for help unnecessarily. And again, if you're using the app the way we teach, you've already deterred criminal behavior. People, as you say, DJ, if a criminal has a mugshot, the last thing they want is to be caught on film. They're going to go work with someone that doesn't have a process. So that timer started. Let's say you had 3 properties, you got distracted. We remind you when it gets to 5 minutes, are you safe? Reset your timer. If you ignore that and that timer runs out, and you don't press end timer, we're going to send an alert to your 3 emergency contacts of your exact location, who you're with, an image of their face. If you're in trouble, like I was 4.5 years ago, I would have pressed the emergency alarm button. It doesn't take 45 seconds. 10 seconds, it calls 911 and it sends your 3 emergency contacts, your exact location, who you're with, and an image of their face or whatever you take. Remember, when you're taking a photo, if it's a squirrel or a tree, that's what we're going to see. And that's what the authorities would see. That's why we encourage it to be the face. If there's a crime committed, we want to catch the criminal. And as you mentioned a minute ago, if the phone is destroyed, everything on our app goes to our cyber secure cloud. So when that phone's destroyed, your 3 emergency contacts, as long as you started the app and you put who you're going to be meeting with, we teach to do that before you get out of the safety of your car. The 3 emergency contacts will be sent the last location of the phone and who you're with, the criminal, and and the image if you were able to take one. So if you were able to capture that image, they'll see it.
Yeah, because if the phone's destroyed, the timer would still be running in the cloud. It would expire, and then it would be like, okay, something's wrong, or we think something might be wrong, and we're going to notify the contacts and possibly the 911 as well. Quick question: do you recommend? So if I put my 3 contacts in, and then I'm using the tool and I'm using it, every day or several days a week. I know that, and of course you would want to have told your contacts ahead of time, by the way, you are my safety contact. Do the contacts themselves also need the app on their device?
No. What happens is when the timer runs out, and you're exactly right, definitely tell your 3 emergency contacts. It should be a friend, a family member, somebody that would care. And what they're going to see when the timer runs out is a text message goes to their cell phone. And the first part of it will explain there could be a problem. Helen hasn't responded. She's showing property. The part under that will be an image, a 3D image of the property, the exact address where I am, where the phone is, who I'm with, the buyer's name or the listing appointment person's name, and an image that I took, so of their face, hopefully.
Yeah, that's great. What I'm curious about is, telling your contacts once that they're part of the safety thing. I almost wonder if the realtor, and again, this is a lot to do each time you do a showing, but maybe having, the realtor letting those people know, hey, just so you know, today I'm out at showing. So just, if you don't mind, keep your eye on your phone. Obviously you might not have to say that every single time, but I think it's not as, it would probably behoove the subscribers to Safe Showings to really consistently remind those 3 contacts. Oh, by the way, you're still on my 3 contact list. I'm still doing showings, and just so you know, today I have some showings. And I know that sounds like a lot of work, but it really isn't. But I'm just curious how you recommend consistently reminding those safety contacts to know that, just so you know, you're still my safety contact.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. Well, you can imagine when I went through working with developers to create this, every step of the app is my idea and it's pushing buttons. I wanted it to be super
Yeah.
simple. So I have my sister as my top contact. She calls me every day. And every single time she always checks on me. She knows that it was part of the testing process. So she would get a lot of alerts. And I'd say, well, send me back what you saw. And it's really cool because what they see is the images, the image of the house or the condominium, the person you're with, whatever you took a picture of. Sometimes I did some funny pictures, but no, it is important to pick people that care. The other thing I want to point out about our app that's unique is when you end a showing at the very end, you're in the safety of your privacy of your car. It was a great day, whatever. Just like Uber and Lyft, our app prompts you to rate how you felt working with the buyer or the seller from a safety standpoint. And the intent for this is for us as an industry to help spread safety across the country. So, for example, I'm working with you in Chicago, you and your wife or your girlfriend, and we look at properties you're buying somewhere, and I live in your market, and then you go works. I'm using SafeShowings. I've got your photo of you and your girlfriend. You're in my SafeShowings app. You go to Texas and you both want to go look at other properties. I've got you in the system. So hopefully the agent in Texas is going to say the same thing. Hey, DJ, I look forward to meeting you Saturday at 2. I just want you to know we care about safety. Our association requires us to use SafeShowings. It's a realtor safety app. All we have to do is get a photo of everyone we allow in a home. And then you're probably going to interrupt and say, I know about that app because I work with some other realtor in Illinois and they were using the same one. I'm probably in the system. While this other person in Texas is in Texas and setting the appointment, they can press create showing, put your phone number in, touch your phone number, it goes in the app, and your photo of the two of you will show up. And you'll hopefully have 5-star rating because you're deterring crime if you do this. But if I only gave you 1 star, just like Uber and Lyft, you always have to give 1. There's a note section where I could put, call me. I had a situation that was really strange. I want to explain to you what happened so you can be safe. So that's our vision, is to spread safety across the globe.
So it matches previous experiences, and it matches by the lead or the client's name or by the
Phone number. Everything's
phone.
driven
Right,
by,
that's right, because there's a million John Smiths, but
yes,
phone numbers are unique. So
phone number.
gotcha.
And
That makes
remember, we have a privacy policy and terms and conditions. We don't share any other pieces of information with each other. It's only that last step, just like Uber and Lyft, the 5-star rating, and its intent is only to help us as an industry deter crime for each other.
Boy, that is such a great addition. I didn't even think about that sort of feature, but of course that's needed. Um, wow, that's wonderful. And so, how does it work for agents that are interested? Is this a subscription model? Is it how does the cost work?
We have a couple of different things, and we're excited to announce probably in the second quarter a new enhancement, a background check feature. Our first app we rolled out is Safe Showings for individuals, and it's in the App Store. It's $4.99, less than a cup of coffee per month, or $49.99 per year for you to be able to take care of safety. The other option is enterprise pricing. Those are for groups, 50 or more. It could be a team, a brokerage, association, a state association, an MLS, you name it. Anytime there's a group, that's Safe Showings Enterprise. And we look at individual opportunities and determine what the pricing will be. And then Safe Showings Enterprise Plus will be the app with the most features. It'll have the facial recognition API, just like we have, and also the background check.
And so the background check will do like a criminal check, I'm guessing.
Yes,
Got it.
it will be driven by reverse lookup of the phone number and just give the basic information.
Oh, so the person does not have to approve the criminal background check because you're just using publicly accessible information based
Yes.
on phone number. Ah, that's interesting because I was thinking, okay, well, is a criminal going to say, I agree to a background check? Of course they wouldn't, but that would
Right.
also be a deterrent, but not a good enough as a deterrent to be matching with something where they don't have to. Boy, that's such a great idea. So you plan on that feature rolling out in the second
Second
quarter.
quarter. Yeah.
Um, and look, we're talking about $5 a month. Like that is a nothing charge, meaning that is nobody misses $5 a month,
Right.
despite whatever income level you're at. And you can't put a price on safety anyway. But even if it was $100 a month, it would be worth it, or more. But for $5 a month, this is really a no-brainer. I mean, it's just there's no barrier, there's no cost barrier to entry. It's not going to impact someone's bottom line to any sizable degree. And oh, by the way, it might just save their life, as you mentioned. So really, you've made this. What I love is you've made this so easy, and not just because the app is easy to use, but you've made the price point really accessible for and really brand new realtors are the ones that likely have the least amount of income to invest in things like safety. They're trying to build their business. They also have the least amount of experience, so they aren't always as aware of some of the dangers that might exist. So for newly licensed agents, this is a must. It's an absolute no-brainer, and not just for newly licensed agents. Of course, everyone should do this, but newly licensed agents, oftentimes some of the software that exists to help them grow their business is cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Certain lead purchasing leads, CRMs oftentimes tend to be costly. This is a absolute, I mean, it's less than half of your Netflix subscription,
You're
and
worth it, right?
Netflix isn't gonna save your life. This actually is a real no-brainer. And quite frankly, I would hope that down the road, like the National Association of Realtors, or again, local associations would, and it sounds like some of them have, integrated this directly into and provide this to all members. I know, I will be very curious to check with our association here, which I do some work on some committees, to find out, why they haven't integrated safe showings. And it would be very cool if National Association of Realtors says, oh, by the way, 1.6 million realtors out there, now everyone has this,
I
which
would
would,
love it.
yeah, so I'm sure.
Just so you know, we over 1 million realtors have access to our app, meaning we have partnerships with several states. Women's Council Group is in your area,
Sure.
several local associations in Illinois, but all across the country, in Texas, all over. There are certain states we haven't yet partnered with, but we checked recently and we have a little over 400,000 downloads. So we're growing, and it's because of our passion. I'm here to help. I'm living my purpose. God has a sense of humor. I never thought it would be technology and an app because I'm not good with technology necessarily. I just had an idea that was put in front of me, and I knew that there's a problem to solve, especially now. Our world's not getting any safer.
And isn't it amazing that no one had built this before you did, right? Like, I'm sure there's other apps and other safety, style apps, but not ones with this specific feature set. And isn't that amazing, right? And so thank goodness you came along and said, I can get that built. I can do that. Even though you're not coding it yourself. So I applaud you for doing that work, and really making it so easy and accessible to everyone. We have a lot of realtors are bombarded with different software providers, or different pieces of technology, and it is often like, oh my gosh, there's 27 different CRMs out there, which one do I choose? And again, they tend to be quite costly, so it's like I really do have to do my research, and I don't have time to, this is like just download it and subscribe. And
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's a cancel anytime scenario anyway, because it's on the app store. So there's really not much risk here, and again, for less than, well, it's about the price of a cup of coffee, I guess. Maybe it's a slightly more than a cup of, oh, I don't know. Actually, it's right
No
about as cost of
sugar
a,
cream, right?
yeah.
It's not a
Depend,
frou-frou coffee.
My girlfriend only drinks just black coffee, so for her it would be like, oh, that's, that would be an expensive cup for her, but for everyone else that's nothing. $5 a month, I mean, gosh, total no brainer. I'm going to be recommending all of our agents, of course, get that here at our company, and really encouraging everyone listening and watching right now to just add it to your thing. You add it, you use it, it takes seconds to use each time. It's not obtrusive. It will not get in the way or interfere with your ability to build rapport with that client. In fact, odds are, if they're also talking to other agents, this is a differentiator that makes you look professional. And it is in no way a negative, in my opinion. I don't see any reasonable customer having an issue. And if they do, well, maybe that's not the right customer to work with. I don't see any reasonable, uh, and you just would have to say, oh, could you lower your mask, like they do in the airports for when they look at your ID? Could you please lower your mask for a moment? But that's really all you need to do, and snap a picture and keep the app running. Pretty easy stuff. And by the way, we should mention Safe Showings. Best way to learn more about it is just go to their website, safeshowings.com. They have links directly to your respective app store, obviously on iTunes and Google Play. It's there. Just search for Safe Showings, and download it and use it and subscribe, and it's a no-brainer. And I am so grateful to have met you, because again, this is not something, as somebody who, number one, doesn't really practice real estate directly, I don't think about, and also as a man, I also really don't think about. And so we encourage not just our listeners who are women, but anyone who identifies as any gender should absolutely be considering this, because you are oftentimes meeting with people for the first time at a property that you may have never been to as well. So there's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of uncertainty and just unfamiliarity, right? You're probably at a home that maybe you've never seen, in a neighborhood you've maybe never visited, and now meeting with somebody who you've never met. So this is a great opportunity to do this. And I also think too, I'm curious if you have an opinion about this. If you are meeting with somebody who you haven't met in person before, and your first time you're going to physically see them is at the showing, look, we're all Zoom accustomed. We're all used to Zoom or some sort of web conferencing. Curious if you have an opinion about having a pre-meeting, even if it's just to say hi, introduce yourself. There's a lot of reasons to do that that will help benefit the realtor as far as rapport goes, but maybe making sure that first in-person interaction isn't the first time you've at least physically seen the person. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts about scheduling like a quick little, get to know each other on Zoom or something prior to the first showing.
That's a great idea. I think that's anything we can do to add a layer of protection and to differentiate ourselves from others. As you mentioned, people that are working with us, when they hear that we care about safety, they're going to see you as confident and that you're a person that cares about safety. They're going to remember you too when they list their house. So don't let that be a deterrent. If somebody doesn't like what you're offering in terms of safety, it can save your life if you don't see them, and it can save you a lot of time. So you don't want to work with somebody that's so upset about that. Why would you want to work with somebody that way? So, but no, that's a great tip. I recommend any level of security you can add, whether it's FaceTime, a quick chat. Let's talk via FaceTime, or Zoom might be a little bit more advanced but I could see that happening with the client. It shows you're professional and that you have a protocol that you like to meet people virtually before you meet them in person. I think everything we do these days can help to save us.
Yeah, and I just couldn't encourage more our listeners and our viewers to please just download this app and use it. It's easy. It's helpful. It's inexpensive. And as we've said many times, it might just actually save someone's life, including yours. And just make sure you continuously remind those contacts, hey, by the way, you're still on my contact list, so that they know to keep an eye out. But what a wonderful product and a solution here. So for everyone out there who is listening or watching, please go to safeshowings.com or go to your respective app store, download SafeShowings, take a look at it, integrate it, tell everybody at your office about this tool, and we will do our best to promote it as well, because we want all of our listeners to keep listening to our show, and if they're not safe, they might not be able to do that. So we want everybody listening to have a wonderful career in real estate, and safety is something that is easily ignored, and let's just not ignore it going forward. So Helen, thank you so much for being on our podcast. We really appreciate it. This has been super helpful, and I'm so glad I got a chance to meet you, so that we became aware of this wonderful piece of technology. On behalf of our listeners and viewers, thank you for the work you're doing to keep realtors safe. And also thanks for spending time that I know is you're very busy, and it's probably not easy to find time to do these kind of interviews. So we appreciate it. We thank you. On behalf of Helen and myself, we want to thank all of our listeners and viewers as well for continuing to listen and support our show. The best way you can help us grow at the Keeping It Real podcast is by telling a friend. So tell them about SafeShowing, and also tell them about our podcast. And, if there's an agent in your office that maybe is a little bit more lax with safety, perfect episode to send to them. Send them right over to our website. They can stream not only this episode, but all the ones we've ever done. I think we've close to 350 episodes now, but every episode we've ever done, including this one, is there. keepingitrealpod.com, or have them pull up a podcast app, search for Keeping It Real, and hit that subscribe button. And lastly, please leave us a review in whatever app you might be listening to this podcast through, whether it's iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Pandora. There's lots of different places you could be listening here. Let us know what you think of the show. It always helps us continue to improve and grow. So leave us a review, but most importantly, tell other agents about SafeShowing. This might just again save lives, and it does save lives. So thank you so much, Helen, for being on our show, and we will see everybody on the next episode.